Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. It looks like we could be, we might be, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, on my Mixer channel. Welcome, everyone, to the very first broadcast of any type from the ImNoJoe crew in 2020. The first thing we are going to come right out of the gates with is the thing that we were supposed to end 2019 with, but life happened. So, unfortunately, the first broadcast of 2020 from the ImNoJoe side of things will not be an ImNoJoe podcast. However, there will be a full and very special ImNoJoe podcast this coming Thursday on the YouTube channel for all you fine folks. If you don't know, I will drop a link here for you just to make sure you can find it. Doo-doo-doo. Assuming Streamlabs wants to play nice. It did. Okay, so links in the chat. The YouTube link is there. Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. Central Time-ish is when we generally try to kick that off. This week we have got a crazy lineup. If everything comes into play like it's supposed to and everybody who says they're going to show up actually shows up, we should have a hell of a show for you guys this week. But that's not what we're here for. What we are here for is the What Did I Say show, the place where I bring you guys all the recaps and all the things that we generally call out or predict or think may happen and talk about on the ImNoJoe podcast. I like to hold us accountable here. And then even in some situations, things we didn't get to talk about on the ImNoJoe podcast. Specifically, I have got all of the Bellator recaps, and there were 3, I believe, Bellator cards at the end of the year, plus the Bellator/Rise Japan card. And then we had the South Korea card that we did the ImNoJoe podcast for, but I didn't get to give you guys a recap on. So we've got that. So, like I like to do here on the What Did I Say show, I'm going to avoid news and recent events. As much as it pains me, because there has been so much happen since the last time the ImNoJoe channel had a broadcast for you fine folks. But I'm going to fight the urge. I'm going to hold that down, squash that feeling, and I'm going to save that for Thursday, because there's going to be some neat folks supposed to be showing up so we can have some interesting talks about some interesting things and go over some interesting news. So what I'm going to do here, we'll jump right off into some recap news. The first thing I'm going to talk about real quick, we will get into the UFC South Korea slash hashtag UFC Busan card. This one of those things that I wasn't really even looking at until it was brought to my attention during the ImNoJoe podcast by the one and only, the freshest of casuals, Mr. Fresho3 himself, the Iron Turtle, Junyoung Park. Fresh absolutely called it. The Iron Turtle came out and absolutely fucking dominated. Not that I doubted that Park was going to come out and do that. I just really didn't think it was going to be that great of a fight. Fresh knew better. That was Fresh's, underdog pick of the fucking card, and sure enough, that was a hell of a fucking fight. So, much props to Mr. Park. Much props to Mr. Fresho3, our favorite casual, for calling that one and getting it right on the money. Next thing I will talk about real quick. I get that a lot of calls on a lot of fights where there's a stoppage will be controversial. And I get that, we're watching on TV, so we're not there. We can't see it in the moment. We don't have the perspective from the referee. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. Sometimes the referee gets a very narrow focus on the situation. Perfect example, as much as I hate to even fucking talk about it, the Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren fight. If you watch the camera angle that was looking over Herb Dean's shoulder, it legitimately looks like Robbie's hand drops to the fucking ground and he went out. I completely understand, and so did Robbie Lawler in the moment, why Herb Dean thought what he thought and why he stopped the fight. That's not to say it's not controversial, but from his point of view, you can understand it. The other point of views from the other camera angles that we've seen since then, even in the moment after the fact, clearly show Robbie was not out. He was actively giving Herb Dean a thumbs up under Ben Askren's fucking gut. He was perfectly fine, but we had a similar situation here in the Air Jourdain fight. Jourdain versus Doo-Ho Choi, the Korean Superboy. Spectacular fucking fight. Great match. But we had one of those situations where the ref jumps in and it really just fucked the whole thing up. And I understand it was in the middle of a lot of action, and I understand the referee's first priority is to look out for the safety and the well-being of the fighters. And I get that, and I respect that, and I am right there with you. But at the same fucking time, this is one of the many reasons why I and a lot of other people advocate to change the fucking rules. In a combat sports situation like this, we should be allowed, under a questionable stoppage, to get a replay for the referee so he understands what he saw versus what was happening, and then restart the match. And I know it's controversial, and I know there are some issues that would come from that, but at the same time, the amount of issues that would resolve from questionable calls, like the Jourdain versus Doo-Ho Choi fight, like the Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren fight. There have been several. We wouldn't have had to have Alistair Overeem saying that he felt Stipe tap. Like, that just wouldn't have been a thing. We could have shown him in the moment. No, that didn't happen. You're fucking delusional. But that's not what we got. Props to Air Jourdain. He put on one hell of a show, and he absolutely came in there, guns a fucking blazing to get after it, and to his credit, he got the W. But I, along with several other people that I have talked to since the fight happened, are at least in our minds, putting a giant asterisk next to that win. The asterisk is, like, it's one of those. It's going to be controversial because you talk to 10 people about it, and you're going to get 8 different opinions. But I'm telling you what I saw. Doo-Ho Choi was not out. I didn't see on any replay any reason that should have been stopped when it did. But again, props to Jourdain. W's a W. He still got it. Moving along from there, the next one that I want to talk about from that Busan card. Volkan versus Rakic. This was a very, very close fight. A very evenly matched fight, I would say. Both gentlemen, both on a very similar level. Neither one really had a clear advantage. It was a very well put together fight. The problem is, for me, what it really demonstrated was not so much favor or momentum or hype in either side here. What it showed me was that despite both of them being evenly matched, neither one of them are legitimately gold contenders right now. Neither one of those two, despite the fucking skyrocketing trend that Rakic is on, despite the, solid stance that Volkan has had in the division, I don't feel like either one of them are really legitimate title contenders. That being said, great fight. There's, it's not to diminish anything from either one of them, but that neither one of those guys are ready to look at the belt. So that will bring us into the main event of UFC Busan. Frankie Edgar versus the Korean Zombie. Frankie obviously on short notice in a different weight class than he was originally scheduled to compete. We were originally supposed to see him this month in a week and a half against Corey Sandhagen, making his debut at 135 pounds. Instead, we saw him short notice on the 21st, I believe it was, of last month at featherweight at 145 pounds as a substitution for the injured Brian Ortega against the Korean Zombie, Cheng Shang-jung. There was problems with this fight from the moment that they announced that Frankie was taking over it, and pretty much all of us called it. We pretty much all had a very strong gut feeling that this is not going to go the way that Frankie thinks it's going to go, because Frankie was already out there saying, I'm going to take this fight, I'll be just fine, I won't take any damage, and then I'll still be able to make the 135 fight with Sandhagen the next month. We'll be good to go. And I believe TJ, Mr. Golf T, even specifically said during the last ImNoJoe broadcast that Dana White's going to end up with a medical suspension list on his desk after that, and Frankie Edgar's name is going to be on it, and we're not going to see him fight Sandhagen at 135. Most of us agreed that Frankie was not going to win that fucking fight. Frankie should have never been in that fight to begin with. And as soon as it started, it was very, very, very apparent. And it's a weird set of outcomes to see the Korean Zombie win like that. On one hand, like I said, we all had a feeling. We all kind of knew this was the direction it was going. But to actually see it come to fruition like that is a little different. And it kind of leaves me with a little bit of a mixed feeling set on it. On one hand, the Korean Zombie is as much of a fucking problem for everyone right now as he has ever been, maybe more so. He is absolutely on a fucking tear, and he deserves to be. He's a bad motherfucker, and he's finally getting his moment to shine. The problem is twofold, really. One, the belt at 145 has got some serious questions around it right now. Obviously, it's newly minted, and I use air quotes there, champion Alexander Volkanovski. First and foremost, I believe the next fight he should take, regardless of anything else going on in that division, which there isn't a whole lot, but there is, so it's weird. The first thing that I believe he has to do is run that back and rematch Max Holloway. I like that Max said, let's do it in New Zealand, or do it in Australia, one of the two. We'll go down to where the champ is, fight in his hometown. Cool. Because it was a close fight. It really was. That was a close fight, but I am one of those people that, to me, like Ric Flair said, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And Alexander Volkanovski did not beat Max Holloway. Yes, they went to a decision, but it wasn't... How do I phrase this without sounding too fucking psychotic? I am of the opinion that belts should not be given away on a decision. If it goes to a decision, period, the champ retains the title. No matter how close the fight was, you did not beat the man that holds the belt. Or woman, depending on the fight, of course. Don't want to be that guy. But stereotypically speaking, generalizing as it were, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And in my opinion, if you go to a decision with a champion, you don't take that belt home. Because you didn't beat him. You were equal to him for 5 rounds, which is not beating them. Obviously, the UFC does not see it the same way. They rely on the judge's decision, or the judge's ruling, rather, once you get to a decision standpoint. And in this situation, a very controversial judge's ruling in this situation, again, gave the belt to Alexander Volkanovski. Both of them, Alex and Max, have said that they would not be opposed to running it back because everyone knows that fight was fucking close. So I believe regardless of what else goes on in the division, that needs to be the first fight that is made, that is talked about, that is built, that is hyped. Make sure both of them are healed, both of them are at 100%, and then find out how many weeks they need for camp and book that fucking fight. Book that rematch. Then, and only then, once that is determined, we move on and we start looking at the next title picture. In that situation, whether Alex beats Max again or Max takes his fucking belt back by beating Alex, because even though I don't agree with how he got it, if Alex takes him to decision, I believe that Alex should keep that belt. But once that is established, whether it is Max getting the belt back or Alex securing the belt, then I would 100% agree and be down for a Korean Zombie versus whoever holds the belt fight. Because really, Chang Sung-jung is a bad motherfucker, and he's been proving it. He took time off his MMA career to do his mandatory military service and came back like he never missed a fucking step. He's now changed camps and is looking better than he ever has. So I absolutely agree that once we get the actual title situation figured out at 145, give the Korean Zombie the next fucking title shot. I think that's fair. But from there, Oh yeah, one more thing I do want to mention real quick about the UFC Busan card. I watched it from multiple channels. I watched it through a stream. I watched it a couple of different places in a couple of different ways, and the sound was off from their broadcast booth all night long. There would be a moment where someone would be talking and a commercial would play over it, or one commentator would be speaking, and when the other one goes to respond to him, the first one's mic would cut completely off, so you would hear the response, and then no recant after that, or no response to that, and then another conversational piece from the second commentator. It was a UFC shit show. You could really tell they did not care as much about this as they did at 245, UFC 245, the week or 2 weeks, whatever it was before. Week before, that's what it was. Now, from there, we move along. I want to take a minute to talk about the Bellator 236 fight card. Bellator Hawaii was off the fucking chain. And I know it got underhyped. I know it didn't get as much press as it should have because it was in the middle of a whole big weird set of things that were going on. But motherfucker, Bellator 236 was fucking crazy. First and foremost, I don't know that this has ever happened in any organization before. The prelims, which to their credit, were maybe better than the main card, but spectacular. Some of the best prelims I have ever seen for a combat card in as long as I can remember. It was spectacular action right out of the goddamn gate. But the big thing, 5 prelim fights, 5 rear naked chokes. All 5 prelim fights, and it's not to say that they were all easy fights. There were some fucking wars, but all 5 of the prelim fights resulted in a rear naked choke stoppage. I don't know that has ever happened, that the entire prelim card not only resulted in all finishes, but all finishes with the same move. It was insane in the moment to watch. It's even crazy to think back about it now because it was such a strange and amazing thing to see happen, but it happened, and it was fucking cool. So it's one of those that, aside from anything else, I absolutely encourage any MMA fan, if you've got the time, go back and watch Bellator 236, starting at the beginning of the prelims. That being said, in Hawaii, the Hawaiians were on full display enforcing their badassery. First thing I want to say real quick, Juliana Velasquez is a fucking beast. Straight fucking badass. Straight badass. But first thing I want to say real quick, I try and make a point. In fandoms like this, your opinions are always subjective. Your point of view is always more tailored towards the way that you feel versus the way that maybe the general public feels. That's kind of what creates fandoms. What I try and actively make a point to do, and TJ and I actually talk about this quite a bit, regardless of how I feel about a fighter personally, I try and give credit where credit is due. If you've earned accolades, I try and give them to you, even if I think you're an asshole and I think you fight like shit and you're fucking worthless in the organization you're in. If you earn accolades, I try and give them justly. This is exactly one of those situations. I don't like AJ McKee. I like his racist fucking waste of human flesh of a father, Antonio, whatever the fuck, however, I don't even... I like him even less. He and I have had it out, and he's made racist comments at me on Instagram before, so fuck him, and fuck AJ for stepping in, seeing his father's racism, and then still trying to defend it. So, the McKee family and I have a very, very big issue, and fuck both of them. That being said, AJ McKee caught a very, very slick armbar at 236. But fuck him, and fuck his daddy twice. But the main event, the main reason for tuning in to Bellator 236, the Pineapple Princess herself, Alimale McFarlane, looked absolutely spectacular on the ground. Her fucking ground game was just, it was a thing to behold. She really was coming in at strange angles. She was being very unorthodox, but being very firm and very technical in her maneuvers, and she absolutely kept her belt for a very big fucking reason. That being said, we will move along out of there. Let's talk about the Bellator / Ryzen card. Bellator 237 / Bellator Ryzen Japan. Very, very interesting card as well. First thing I gotta say, Darren Cruikshanks absolutely put the bad mojo on himself with that fucking ridiculous and obnoxious mustache, and I use air quotes strongly, that he grew out just for that card. What? It was insulting to classical and classy facial hair. That was a straight up 1900 or 1800s pedo stash. It was like Tom Selleck's mustache got raped by Wyatt Earp's mustache, and the afterbirth was slapped on Darren Cruikshank's face. It's fucking horrible, and by playing with it and trying to show it off, he kind of talked himself right into what I feel is the ass whooping that he deserved. Next thing I gotta say, Yamauchi cannot seem to make weight, but damn if that boy can't jits. That fucking kid has some very, very tight jiu-jitsu, and he's going to be a very big problem for a lot of top contenders in that division if he can get his weight on point. I don't know what's going on in that camp, if his nutritionist just really isn't keeping up with him, if he's not following the nutritionist, if he's taking too many cheat days off, if he's having secret pizza in the middle of the night. I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but what he's doing is not working, and he needs to get his shit together because his jiu-jitsu game is going to make him a real problem for a lot of the top contenders if he can get himself dialed in. Next thing I want to say real quick. I'm going to take a drink. Next thing I want to say. Wanatabi. Again, weight issues on this card were fucking huge. I believe there was 4 or 5 fighters on the card that missed weight. Yamauchi, immediately afterwards. Wanatabi missed weight. But that fight was a little bit closer, and he absolutely did earn his win. Then you talk about the next one. Again, right out of the gate. Nakamura versus Lorenz Larkin. They both looked like shit. Neither one of them looked good in there. Neither one of them looked like they wanted to win. Neither one of them looked like they wanted to be in the cage to begin with. The only real difference for me in that fight was that Lorenz Larkin missed fucking weight. A guy who has a pretty decent record of making weight as a professional fighter missed weight for the final event of the year, for arguably your biggest spotlight moment of 2019, the final thing people will remember you in 2020 by. The last thing you left them with from 2019 is a fucking missed weight garbage fight. The fuck, man. Just another one of many reasons why I'm not sad that Lorenz Larkin got released from the UFC, and I think whether he figures his weight issues out or not, he's going to make a good fit over in Bellator because he is very much the future soup can that they hope him to be, I think. Now, moving along from there. It's kind of Groundhog Day-ish in how much we have to fucking say this, But I'm going to say it again because it bears repeating every time it is demonstrated, and it was demonstrated. Michael Venom Page, MVP, is a fucking douchebag. He might be the single most douchebag fighter in the welterweight division of all MMA. He smashed a soup can like he does in almost every single fight. A guy who, like most of the delivery drivers and waiters that MVP seems to fight, looked like he had never been in a real professional fight before the moment that bell fucking rang and the fight started. So it was no surprise that MVP beat him, despite those of us that were watching in my group screaming and cheering for the other gentleman. It's one of those things where no matter your fandom, you can't change the events of the you can't change the outcome of the event that you're watching by yelling at your TV. We still tried, but didn't have any effect. MVP still won, and he was still a douchebag, and he's actively trying to make it seem like Douglas Lima is ducking him, which, one, fuck you. Two, the last time you guys fought, you didn't lay a hand on him, and he hit you so fucking hard you did the stanky leg and got knocked the fuck out in the middle of the octagon. Why in the actual fuck would he have any hesitations about doing it again? 3, Douglas Lima has already said he has no problem with the rematch if MVP earns it. His suggestion, since Lorenz Larkin decided even though he can't make weight, he should be getting a title shot, Lima said, cool, let Larkin and let MVP fight it out. The winner can get the next shot at the title. And I like it. I like it. They're both fucking clowns. Larkin can't make weight. MVP can't fight real competition. Let those two fucking dipshits go at it, and the winner of them gets their ass beat by Douglas Lima. And I am a firm believer either one of them would get their asshole stomped into a mud pit and walked dry by Douglas Lima with little to no effort. That being said, moving on to the next fight. Sydney Outlaw, the Tyrone Biggums of Bellator, or one of their Tyrone Biggums, because they've got a couple of them now who legitimately look like the fucking crackhead Chappelle from the Chappelle skit. He actually looked pretty damn good. He really did look good early on. And then he started loading up on his shots, and he started trying to land this weird forced leaping punch that didn't even remotely seem like it was going to work from the get-go. But then he started favoring it more and more heavily, and it just didn't work. And it was leaving him wide open while he was doing it. I don't know where that came from, and I don't know why his coach wasn't screaming at him from the top of his lungs to stop it. That being said, Michael Chandler looks spectacular. And the problem with Michael Chandler looking as good as he absolutely did in that fight, he didn't use a single little shred or iota of his wrestling prowess. And he might be one of the best wrestlers in the game in his division. I don't know that his performance was good enough or showed enough that he could carry on a legit title run at this point. But he definitely deserves top-tier competition as his next opponent. Absolutely, unquestionably, I would say top 3. Give him the top of the stack. Literally, give him, if you're not going to give him the belt, give him the contender. Because I think if Chandler fights the way that we saw him fight here and his next fight, it's going to be hard to deny that he has a legitimate chance of holding that belt for a 4th time. Excuse me. Now, what I would say turned out to be one of, maybe not the, but absolutely one of the most glorious shit shows of 2019. Fedor Emelianenko versus Rampage Jackson. This was a weird fight. And I said that this was going to be a weird fight when we had a chance to talk about it a couple times before then. But it turned out to be almost more of a weird fight than I thought it was going to be. Rampage Jackson, I don't know specifically if there's any one thing you can point to, but somehow somebody has stopped up the pressure release valve on Rampage. He's got about 50 psi too much in that tire. He has no neck anymore. His ears connect directly to his shoulders. He had to struggle to cut and make 265. This is one of those fights 5 years ago, realistically speaking, 10 years ago, would have been entertaining as shit no matter where you had it, no matter what organization, no matter what rule set. Prime Rampage versus Prime Fedor could have been a spectacular fight. What it ended up feeling like was Chuck versus Tito 3 all over again. What I will say, despite how you could see the fight going very early on, Rampage was legitimately sticking to his game plan. It wasn't working the greatest, but it was working, and you could see that he was actively sticking to the game plan. But then you've got Fedor throwing weird angle punches, and they land. And sometimes the weird angle punches are just what you need. You've heard it time and time again. Fighters will often tell you it's usually the punch you don't see coming that puts you down. And the weird punches that Fedor throws are hard to see coming. And that's exactly what happened. Fedor threw a very strange punch, but damn if it wasn't exactly what was needed. And it did exactly what it was supposed to do. He stopped Rampage. So, technically speaking, they kind of went over it a little bit in a post-fight press conference, but even in the ring, I guess there was a mistranslation of it, but he mentioned that this is his retirement tour for Fedor. He has 3 fights he planned, this being the first one. He wants to fight once more in America and then once more in his homeland of Russia before he officially retires. And I get it. If they give him his choice of opponents, it could be interesting. If they make him fight legitimate contenders, and I use that term very loosely when we talk about the Bellator heavyweight division, but if they put him against legitimate contenders, it could be the last great test of the last emperor, Fedor himself. If they give him a pair of soup cans to go out with looking spectacular, it could be a very strange and kind of melancholy, awkward feeling event. But either way, this is the last we're going to see of Fedor very, very shortly. But I think the weirdest thing of the evening, aside from the strange Fedor punch, was that after the match was over and the winner was announced and everybody did their spiel, and then Fedor and his team back up to do the big, in-ring we won picture, Rampage slid in and dropped down in front of him and photobombed him. And you could tell no one really knew how to react to it. No one, obviously that was not planned, but you could tell no one on either side knew how to react to it, and it was just fucking weird. It was weird. But that's all the recaps that I have for you fine folks. There is one more link that I'm going to drop in the chat here real quick. I have not got a chance to put it in to the spiel that rolls out when I type my commands just yet. It will be soon. But there in the Mixer chat is the newest link for the ImNoJoe crew. This is a very big, important thing. It's one of my main goals to get 2020, and I got it going the first couple weeks of the year. As of right now, the all audio version of the ImNoJoe podcast, not the What Did I Say show. Those you can only get in video form either here on Mixer or over on YouTube. But the full program, the ImNoJoe podcast, in all audio form, so you don't have to deal with this ugly mug, is now available on your platform of choice. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can go to anchor.fm/ImNoJoe. You can get them on Apple Podcasts. You can get us on Google Podcasts. You can get us on Pocket Cast. You can get us on Breaker. You can get us on Podroom. You can get us on Spotify. We are now on all audio platforms for the most part for the full shows. Everything as of right now, all of the ImNoJoe podcasts have been converted to audio form. All 47 episodes, yes, that's right, we have done 47 episodes to date. All 47 episodes of the ImNoJoe podcast are now in audio form. We are calling that Season 1. They are available on anchor.fm/ImNoJoe. Season 2 starts this Thursday. The first ImNoJoe podcast of 2020 will be Thursday, January 16th. We will be talking about the press conference for Cowboy and Connor that will go down on Wednesday. We will be talking about all of the news and events that have happened since the last time we saw you fine folks in the end of December. And we will be giving you the full breakdown and our predictions for the UFC 246 Cerrone versus McGregor UFC event card. That will be Thursday, January 16th, 9:30 p.m.-ish Central Standard Time on the ImNoJoe YouTube channel. I will drop links for all the ImNoJoe things in the chat one more time here in case you missed them in the beginning of the program. But we are going to call that all for this evening. From what I can see, everything seems to have went off without a hitch. In the broadcast side of things, it looks like we may have things dialed in to where you guys are going to start getting content absolutely thrown at you like a Gatling gun here, because now that we can broadcast successfully from multiple different angles, multiple different things, we got a bunch of different settings we tweaked, we upgraded a bunch of hardware, we are now on multiple more platforms than we were. Things are just going to go crazy in 2020. I cannot wait to show you guys all the things that I have in the works, but things are starting to fall into place. We are getting this damn thing in order. We are almost fake, not real professionals looking good. But that's all we've got for you fine folks this evening. I hope to see you all Thursday night on the YouTube channel for the ImNoJoe podcast. Thank you, Larry, for hanging out in the chat and anyone else who I might have missed. I will see you all Thursday night. If you did not get to catch this live on Mixer, it will be on YouTube Tuesday evening where I re-upload these shows to YouTube. But that's it for now. So remember, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything, unless you're still somehow think Epstein killed himself. But you already know. Have a great night, folks.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown. They were chopping them up, they were chopping them down. It's an ancient Chinese art, and everybody knew their part. From a fainting to a slip, and a kicking from the hip, everybody was